Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Pet Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Roberta Westbrook. Thank you for joining us today here at the Campus for All Animals, the Houston SPCA. As always, we have lots of fun and exciting things happening here on campus and hopefully some helpful information for you today. Today, we are going to talk about a topic that affects lots of us, and that is, what is the difference between the different types of support animals, emotional support animals, and service dogs? So it can be somewhat of a confusing topic, and so we'll try to outline which animals can be designated as support animals or service animals, and we'll help answer some of your questions that you have today. In the meantime, while you think of your questions, I'd like to introduce you to a wonderful dog that we have here today. Her name is Melon. Melon is about a 2-year-old spayed female. She was brought to us because she was rescued with her puppies due to heat distress. So again, it's summertime, it's Texas, it's still very hot outside, and she was outside suffering from heat distress with her puppies, but she's doing well and her puppies are doing well. So we just wanted to have her out today playing and getting an opportunity to find her forever home. So we know that for years, research has been able to prove how beneficial owning a pet is and how it can have lots of health benefits. So we encourage you to come on down, come to our adoption center. There's no appointment necessary. You can visit with dogs, cats, puppies, and kittens that you can consider bringing into your home forever and get some of those emotional benefits like Melon can give you here. She'll make someone a wonderful family pet. She knows how to sit, and she knows how to shake, and she knows how to lie down. And so she would make a great pet, and she's got really good manners. So come visit with Melon. Melon, come on, see us here, Melon. So yes, we have lots of dogs here, and Melon can show off some of her skills while we talk about what you can do if you are, maybe looking for an emotional support animal, you have an emotional support animal, you know someone who needs a service animal, what does that all mean? So let's talk about it. So what are the differences in those? Because there are 3 different types of categories of animals that we can discuss as it relates to support animals. So the first one is what we call a service dog. It's what a lot of us are familiar with. A service dog is unique because a service dog serves another person. A service dog is specially trained to help with a particular disability that's been diagnosed by a physician. For example, a blind person or a deaf person or someone who is in a wheelchair. These are disabilities that may be able to be helped by having a service dog who is specifically trained in tasks that will assist the person with their particular disability. These particular dogs can be especially expensive because they take a lot of training, years of training, and they can be life-saving. Not only physically life-saving, but provide a lot of emotional support to the people that they are helping as well. So that is a service dog. Service dogs are also protected by American with Disabilities Act, the ADA. And so, they're a very special group. And so does anyone have questions out there about service dogs and what they provide?
So where can somebody get a service dog?
That's a great question. Where can someone get a service dog? Well, let's start with, whether or not you need a service dog. If you have a disability and your physician has determined that a service dog would be beneficial in your life, then your physician can essentially write a prescription saying that you need a service dog. Then you can go online, and there are lots of national organizations that train service dogs. Most of the time they require an application, and on that application you give information about yourself, about your disability. Oftentimes that organization may contact your physician to get more information about the type of service dog that you need, and they will match you up with an appropriate dog. But there's lots of national organizations that you can go online and search for and see if there is an organization that makes sense for you and that can match you up for the right type of service dog to help you.
So you have to apply. Not just anybody can get a service dog.
Yes, you will need to apply, and they will need to see usually information from your physician, and then there'll usually be some sort of payment plan or plan regarding cost for that service animal.
And then if an animal has a vet, if they have a veterinarian or sorry, does that make them a service dog? Like if they need any type of veterinary assistance? I mean, if they're part of if they have PTSD or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. So this can be complicated as well, because depending on the person's severity of their condition might determine what type of animal they need. For example, it is not uncommon that a person may suffer from anxiety or depression, for example. But in some people, anxiety and depression is very mild. And in other people, it can be quite severe and debilitating and affect their daily life. And essentially prohibit them from being able to carry on normal daily functions. Perhaps you may have someone who's too anxious to leave the house. They're not able to go to the grocery store. They're not able to do things that are part of their daily routine. In those extreme cases, people may qualify for an actual service animal. That's slightly different than someone who has a mild form of anxiety that may benefit from what we call an emotional support animal. So an emotional support animal is also an animal that can help to bring down anxiety and improve depression in people who have those particular types of conditions. Emotional support animals are different from service dogs because they do not have to have any specific training. They are just there to make us feel more comfortable, to feel better, to reduce anxiety and depression.
So can a shelter dog be trained to be a service dog, or can they just be trained to be an emotional support dog?
So in general, true service dogs are typically bred for that. And so they come from, a specific breed, a line that is, that has the qualifications to be a service dog. But it's not impossible for a shelter animal to become trained and learn skills to become a service dog. There are organizations that train service dogs, and then there are individuals who can learn to train a service dog. But it does typically take, a years long process because you have to have those animals to be able to perform specific tasks based on a specific disability. So if a person is blind, for example, a dog will need to be able to carry out specific tasks for that particular disability. So again, it's not impossible for a shelter animal to become a service dog, but more likely than not, these service dogs are coming from organizations that have a population of dogs that are able to be trained for those purposes.
And I know you mentioned these service dogs are covered by an ADA, so they're allowed in public spaces. How can we tell if they really are a trained service animal or just a pet?
That's a great question too. So if you have a service dog, the Americans with Disabilities Act says that you are allowed to bring your service dog in any public space. Typically, service dogs are identified by having a special harness or a leash that says service animal. It may even say something like, I'm at work, please do not pet me, or please do not feed me. And that's because these animals are indeed at work. They are working to protect and support their handler. And so these are not dogs that we want to walk right up to and pet, or offer treats to. They are at work, and they're often identified by special harnesses or special leashes that indicate that. Now, owners of business establishments, if they are trying to identify whether or not a dog in their establishment is a service dog or not, they are allowed to ask the handler what the dog is trained to do for that particular person. So the owner of an establishment may say, what is your dog trained to do for you? They are not allowed to ask about your specific disability. So those are some ways that people can identify service dogs and what they're actually trained to do.
So we had Sharon ask, do hospices or homes for the elderly allow companion animals for support purposes?
Oh, that's a great question too. So if you are, interested in having your dog go to hospitals or nursing homes or assisted living facilities, or maybe you've been in one of those locations and you've seen dogs enter to help give support to patients and residents there. These animals are more typically called therapy dogs. So a therapy dog is another category where these dogs do not have training for a specific disability, but rather have a certain set of skills that are just based on manners, good manners and proper behavior in public. For example, therapy dogs should be able to properly accept interaction with strangers without becoming aggressive or becoming adverse. They should sit. They should walk on a leash well. They should be able to have good recall and come when called. They should not be too distracted by their surroundings. There's lots of qualifications that fit with a therapy dog. So if you're in a hospital, a nursing home, assisted living facility, and you say a dog in those facilities, those are what we call therapy dogs. And you can certainly, anyone can get their dog to be trained to be a therapy dog. One of the ways you can do that is by getting a certificate through what we call a canine good citizen test. So there's a canine good citizen test. It is a test of 10 skills that your dog must complete and must complete well before they are deemed a canine good citizen. They can get a certificate, and in those cases, they are typically allowed to go into spaces to give comfort to people who need it.
So to get this test or this certificate, can I do that training at home, or do I have to go to a behavior specialist?
You could do this training at home. So you can go online and look up Canine Good Citizen and its qualifications. You can also, if you've taught your dog these skills, they have a link where you can schedule your dog to be tested and evaluated and make sure that they pass. But you can absolutely teach your dog these skills. And it's a really good maybe achievement for you to go through, a goal for you and your pet to have together. It's always good to be able to be a resource for other people who need it. We know the benefits that our pets give us. It would be wonderful for us to give that benefit to other people, for them to be able to experience the love that our pets have. So having the goal of having your dog be a canine good citizen is actually really wonderful and something that you can achieve maybe for a new resolution.
And are there any specific dog breeds that you think do better for therapy dogs, or anyone can, be qualified for the right amount of training?
With the right amount of training, good attitude, good personality, diligence, and consistency, any dog can be a canine good citizen and a good therapy dog and provide a lot of comfort and health benefits to those who need it. So don't be discouraged no matter what you have. It can be a Pomeranian, it can be a German Shepherd. All the dogs have the ability to be helpful to people.
So if we see a dog as a therapy dog, we can pet them. Can we pet service dogs or working dogs?
If you're out and you see a dog that has a special vest or a leash that says service dog, I would not pet those dogs. The reason is they are at work, and we don't want them to be distracted by people coming up and and feeding them or petting them. They're working and they need to be focused on their handler and making sure that they're doing what they need to support their handler. Usually therapy dogs are more than willing to allow petting and to accept petting and to sit calmly for it. They're also typically taught to sit calmly for interaction with other pets as well. So therapy dogs would really be, the type of dog that you're able to pet. Now, always ask the handler if it's okay if you pet a dog. So if you see a dog, instead of walking right up and petting, it's always a great idea if you first approach the handler and ask if it's okay and if it's a good time to pet the dog at this moment.
So Miss Jennifer was wondering if a cat could be an emotional therapy cat or an emotional therapy pet, especially for like an autistic child.
Yeah, so we can talk about a couple of those. So for emotional support animals, any animal can be an emotional support animal. They are animals that are there to help reduce, again, anxiety, depression, and really sort of lift our spirits. Therapy animals as well, as long as they are trained, could potentially be therapy animals. According to the American Disabilities Act, and depending on where you are, typically service dogs are the protected species there. They're trained to recognize a specific disability, but certainly other animals potentially could be trained to, recognize disease processes in animals and help them. Currently, the American Disabilities Act identifies a service animal as a service dog.
So there's a myth that anyone can go online and get an emotional support dog certificate. Is that true?
An emotional support animal should really be certified by, a licensed therapist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist, someone who has identified a person as really, truly needing an emotional support animal. So in a best case scenario, you should visit with your physician, your therapist, psychologist, or psychiatrist, have them write a letter indicating why you need an emotional support animal and supporting your, the owning of an emotional support animal. You can have this letter with you. You can provide it to your landlord. Certainly there may be companies out there who will write you letters for a fee, but legally this really should be done by a licensed therapist.
Obviously, we all have pets and we all love, to be with them. What are the dangers of having just any dog be, have the same credentials as a service dog?
Right. We want to make sure that service dogs in particular are unique and special because of their training. So we want to make sure that they are trained to recognize, prevent specific disease processes or help to assist people in their daily lives with specific training. And that takes a lot. That takes, again, years long work with the animal. And so we don't want all animals to be labeled as service animals because it sort of blurs the lines between behavior, ability to do certain tasks. And so we do need some outline to designate who is a true service animal that is for people with a diagnosed disability versus an emotional support animal or a therapy dog who is very well behaved, provides comfort to people, but is not trained in a specific way.
If my landlord doesn't allow pets, can I qualify mine as an emotional support animal?
If you have an emotional support animal, particularly if you have that letter from, a licensed therapist saying that this is your emotional support animal, you can give that letter to your landlord and they are not allowed to evict you. They should allow your emotional support animal in your dwelling, but typically having some sort of letter indicating such would be necessary.
Are canines considered service dogs?
Sure. You mean canine? Yes, police dogs.
Police canines, yes.
Police dogs. So that's a great question. So police dogs are definitely working dogs, but again, we usually reserve the term service animal for an animal that's trained for people that have a specific disability. So canine, police dogs are working dogs and they are trained to do a specific type of work, but they are not working to assist a person with a disability. And so there's still a difference there in those two categories.
And what would happen if someone goes to a restaurant with a service dog and they're not allowed inside? And the probably restaurant owner thinks they're scared of having, pet hair in the food, things like that.
Understood. So if a establishment is not allowing a service dog in, that is against the law. So that's against the American with Disabilities Act. And all public establishments should allow service dogs in the establishment. Unfortunately, public establishments should not be refusing access to service dogs and to their handlers. And so it would be important that if you're encountering that you let them know that would be, against the law.
Can dogs be trained to detect specific diseases?
Yes, that's exactly what we want the service dogs to be able to do. And we've come a long way. There's amazing things that dogs can do. They can determine whether someone is about to have a seizure, for example. In some dogs, they've been able to determine whether the person has a particular disease in their body, such as cancer. There have been animals who are able to calm their handlers down when they're having an anxiety attack or a panic attack. And so dogs can be trained to pick up on lots of different diseases and conditions that might be coming up and help to prevent them and keep their handlers safe.
if a dog has a vest, does that automatically make them a service animal?
That's a great question. So no, if a dog has a vest, just because it says service animal, it doesn't automatically mean that. We hope that the general public and that people who have service dogs are being honest about, the training that their dog has. And so again, owners of businesses are allowed to ask what your dog is trained to do. And so we hope that people are being honest and they're putting vests on or using leashes that are appropriate for their dog, because we want these dogs to be very well behaved in public. It's important that they maintain that status of being very well behaved and being out in public and being a true service animal.
What if we encounter a dog that isn't, well behaved, but they're at a store and we kind of detect they're not real service dogs? What can we do to make sure that, this is only limited to service dogs? Or is there anything that we can do?
People who are visiting an establishment, they notice that they may want to talk to the business owner about it. The business owner, if the animal is becoming a risk to other people. So if the animal's in the establishment being ill behaved, maybe, having urination or defecation in a restaurant, or attempting to bite or being disruptive, those may be reasons that they are able to dismiss the service dog and the handler from the establishment. But otherwise, as long as the animal is behaving and performing his or her job, then they should stay there. Now, if we're noticing that as onlookers, we can certainly talk to the owner of the establishment about if we're noticing something that doesn't seem right.
Because there's so many hours going into the training for service dogs, and I'm sure they can be quite costly. Are there any organization that might give them, for the reduced cost, or is it tax exempt?
So service dogs can be expensive. They can be upwards of $20,000 in some cases, and maybe higher depending on what they are expected to do. And oftentimes organizations who train these dogs have some sort of payment plan. And so there are options for paying it. Sometimes they require a down payment, and then you can pay the rest over time. But they do tend to be expensive, and there are programs out there and companies out there that know that and that will work with you in terms of the payment. Well, there's lots going on here at the Houston SPCA, and Melon's just having a great time here, playing with everyone. Melon has lots of great behaviors as well, sit, shake, lie down. She's on her way to getting, trained, and maybe she could one day be an emotional support animal or a therapy animal. We have lots of dogs here that might be able to achieve that status. So please come on down. Particularly, we want you to come on down on August 27th. August 27th, next Saturday, is what we call Clear the Shelters event. It's a wonderful event sponsored by our partners, Hill's Pet Nutrition. And what we do at Clear the Shelters is we have lots of exciting things for family, for friends. We're going to have snow cones. We're going to have face painting. For the adult variety, we have beer. We have lots of animals. So please come on down. We open at 11 a.m. We'll have lots of activities for you and your family. So please come visit us for Clear the Shelters. You can have lots of fun, lots of excitement, and you can hopefully bring home a new pet. We'll even have emergency response preparedness kits. For those of you that adopt a pet, you'll be able to go home with an emergency response kit to help you be more prepared in the event of an emergency and you've got to evacuate. We're going to be giving away some kits to those of you who adopt pets. So make some time to come on down and see us at Clear the Shelters August 27th. We open at 11 a.m. As always, I'm happy to speak with you on Fridays. Thanks for joining us again. I'm Dr. Westbrook. Thanks for seeing the Pet Pawcast.